My name is Ava Mitchell, and I was 29 the year my wedding died in a stack of screenshots. On paper, my life looked perfectly timed. 3 years with my boyfriend, 8 months engaged, a white and gold wedding set for 3 weeks from Saturday, Pinterest boards turned into real invoices, a dress hanging in a garment bag in my closet, a venue booked a year in advance because his parents insisted on doing it right. If you'd asked me then how things were going, I would have said something like, busy, stressful, but good, solid. That's what everyone wants to hear. That's what I wanted to believe. My boyfriend, Ryan Bennett, 27, is the kind of handsome that photographs well from any angle. Easy smile, gym sculpted shoulders, a little dimple in his left cheek when he laughs for real, not the polite version he uses in front of his parents. His family has money. His dad owns some manufacturing company that makes components for systems that all sound like background noise to me. And they were footing most of the bill for the wedding. The joke for a long time was that I'd hit the jackpot. Nice guy, nice ring, nice future in a nice neighborhood. The thing about jackpots is you never notice the house edge until you're already losing. From the outside, Ryan's family is this polished unit. His dad, Thomas, speaks in statements that sound like closing arguments. His mom, Linda, is always put together, always fine, even when she's not. His older brother, Mark, is the golden child who followed their dad into the business. They welcomed me, sort of. Smiles, polite questions. You're good for him. But there was always this quiet undercurrent that everything, from which caterer we chose to where we sat at family dinners, ultimately flowed back to what the Bennetts wanted. I told myself that was normal. Every family has its quirks. I grew up middle class. This was just wealth culture. You compromise. You pick battles. You ignore the moments when your fiancé squeezes your knee under the table as his dad talks over you about the guest list. The night everything broke didn't look dramatic. There were no raised voices, no slammed doors. It was just a Tuesday. I'd come home from work later than usual. I do operations for a logistics company. My days are a string of small crises that no one outside my team ever notices. I dropped my bag, toed off my heels, and headed toward the kitchen, already mentally cataloging what leftovers we had. Ryan's phone was on the counter, plugged into the charger. The screen lit up as I walked by. A notification banner slid across the top. From Gym Trainer. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Last night was incredible. My stomach didn't drop right away. It kind of stalled, like my brain refused to load the meaning for a second. His gym trainer. We talked about her before, casually. A woman named Danny who ran some high-end personal training program at the boutique gym he'd joined last year. I'd met her once in passing, tall, fit, charming, and Ryan had mentioned, quickly, that they used to date forever ago, before college, but were just friends now. The notification sat there glowing in the dim kitchen. Last night was incredible. My hand moved before my thoughts caught up. I picked up the phone. No passcode. We'd never used them with each other, because we trust each other. That thought flashed through my head with a bitter little laugh that I didn't let reach my mouth. I tapped the message thread. It was like opening a door and finding a completely different life happening on the other side. 6 months of messages. 6 months of miss your hands and same hotel as last time. And pictures I didn't want burned into my brain. References to my business trips. She's gone till Thursday, come over. And to my dress fittings. She's out doing bride stuff, I've got all night. Pieces of my schedule, my work, my errands, repurposed as windows of opportunity for my fiancé to sleep with his ex-girlfriend. At some point, my knees gave out enough that I leaned against the counter. The fridge hummed. The clock over the stove ticked too loud. I scrolled and scrolled, watching my engagement unravel in blue and gray bubbles. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. The rage would come later, hot and wild. In that moment, everything in me went very still, like standing in the eye of a hurricane. I started taking screenshots. My thumb moved automatically. Capture, scroll, capture. Every explicit line, every date, every mention of our apartment, of our bed. I emailed them to myself, one batch after another, until my inbox felt like a crime scene. Then I closed the thread, put the phone back exactly how I'd found it, screen down, cord looped the same way. By the time the shower shut off down the hall, I'd reheated leftovers and set plates on the table. My hands shook, but only a little. Ryan came into the kitchen in a t-shirt and sweatpants, hair damp, smelling like my body wash. "Hey," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. "You're home late." "I know." I stepped out of reach before I had to decide whether to let him touch me. "We need to talk." He smiled, automatic. "If this is about your mom's seating chart drama, I swear." "It's about the wedding," I said. "We're not having one." Silence is a funny thing. It can feel like a dropped glass. His smile froze. "What?" "The wedding is off, Ryan." I kept my voice calm. I sounded like I was giving a status update at work. "We're done." His eyes flicked over my face, searching for a joke. "Okay, ha, you got me. What's this really?" I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and tapped the first screenshot. There he was, his name at the top, Danny's messages below, phrases I will never unsee. I held the screen up between us. The color drained from his face. He took the phone like it might burn him, thumb swiping, shoulders rising with each new line he read. "Where did you—" "Your phone," I said. "It lit up on the counter." "So you went through it?" His head snapped up, eyes flashing with something ugly. "Ava, what the hell?" "That's your concern right now?" "You violated my privacy." "You've been sleeping with your ex for 6 months in my apartment," I said quietly. "Don't talk to me about privacy." He started the performance then. I'd watched him rehearse versions of it before with his parents, with waiters, with anyone he needed something from. The wide eyes, the broken voice. "It didn't mean anything," he said. "It was a mistake. I don't even know what I was thinking. I love you. I want to marry you. We can get through this. People do. They go to counseling and—" "I'm not those people." My voice shook once. I swallowed it. "I'm not marrying someone who turned our engagement into an alibi schedule." "Ava, please. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Everyone's booked. Deposits are paid. My parents—" "Your parents' money doesn't make you less of a cheater." Something in his expression hardened. The begging drained out, replaced by anger. "You can't just call it off," he snapped. "This is my life too. This is my home too." "It's my lease," I said. "You moved in with me. You can start moving out tonight. You have until tomorrow to be gone." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. For a second, I wondered if I recognized myself either. Then he pulled out his phone. "You're seriously doing this?" His thumb flew across the screen. "Fine, I'm calling my dad." Of course he was. They arrived an hour later, the Bennetts in full formation. Thomas in his pressed shirt sleeves, Linda clutching her handbag like a shield, Mark hovering behind them with his jaw clenched. They filled my tiny living room with expensive cologne and judgment. Thomas didn't bother with small talk. "What's this about you canceling the wedding?" he demanded, looking at me like I was a defective product. "Do you have any idea how much money has already been spent?" "Dad," Ryan muttered, "can we just—" "Your son," I said, "has been cheating on me with his ex-girlfriend for 6 months. I'm not marrying him." Linda's hand flew to her chest. "That's ridiculous. Ryan would never—" I stepped aside and picked up the folder I'd printed at the office printer on my way home, the one I hadn't wanted to admit to myself I might need. I handed Thomas the first few pages. "Not everything, just enough." He read. His face went from confused to stunned to something harder. He passed the papers to Linda. She skimmed, lips trembling. Mark didn't reach for them at all. He just stared at his brother. "Is this true?" Thomas asked finally, turning to Ryan. His voice was low, dangerous. Ryan swallowed. "Dad, it's not what it looks like. How long?" Thomas cut in. Silence. "How long, Ryan?" 6 months, Ryan whispered. Linda made a small sound like the air had been punched out of her. Mark shut his eyes. Thomas turned back to me, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might say he was sorry. That he might look at his son, then at me, and think, no wonder she's calling it off. Instead, he said, "This is bad, but calling off the wedding 3 weeks out? Do you understand the financial position you're putting us in?" It took me a second to process the words. "The financial position I'm putting you in," I repeated. "We've paid deposits on everything. The venue, caterer, photographer, those are non-refundable. We're out nearly $80,000 because you're canceling this late." "Because your son cheated," I said, repeatedly. "If you'd found out months ago, we could have minimized the losses," Thomas continued, as if he hadn't heard me. "We made these investments in good faith, based on your promise to marry our son. You're the one breaking that promise." "He broke it first," I said, "with every message, every hotel charge." Linda stepped in, voice quivering, but still trying to be soothing. "Everyone is upset right now. Maybe it doesn't have to end like this. You two could postpone, go to counseling." "I'm not marrying him," I said. "The wedding is off. He's moving out. That's not changing." Thomas's eyes cooled another few degrees. Then we're going to have to talk about compensation. Somewhere deep in my chest, something clicked into place. A quiet understanding. This wasn't about love, or even about Ryan. This was about money, control, and the fact that I was refusing to play my assigned part. Talk to whoever you want, I said. I'm not paying for your son's affair. Thomas's jaw tightened. You'll be hearing from our lawyer. Later, I would look back on that moment and realize it was the real start of the war. Not the affair, not the screenshots, not even the canceled wedding. It was the second a disappointed father decided it would be easier to sue me than hold his son accountable. At the time, I just watched them leave my apartment. Ryan trailing after his parents, Linda still dabbing at her eyes, Mark giving me a long, unreadable look over his shoulder, and felt the walls go quiet around me. I thought it was over. I had no idea it was only getting started. The envelope was thicker than a normal bill, heavy, like it knew it was bringing bad news. It was waiting on my doormat 2 weeks after the Bennetts stormed out of my apartment. No text from Ryan, no calls since that night. His social media went quiet. Mutual friends sent a few cautious, "Are you okay?" messages, the kind people send when they're afraid to pick a side. I picked up the envelope, saw the return address from a law firm, and felt my heartbeat move out of rhythm. By the time I sat on my couch and opened it, my hands were slick. "Breach of promise to marry," I read out loud, because my brain refused to accept the words silently. You've got to be kidding me. But the pages were real. Legal language, my name, Ryan's family, $85,000 in wedding-related expenses and emotional damages to their son, who was allegedly left devastated and humiliated by my abrupt and unjustified termination of our engagement. They'd attached a schedule of costs: venue, catering, photographer, florist, videographer, dress for his mother, suit for his father, custom engraved favors, because of course. I read it 3 times, front to back. By the end, my hands had stopped shaking. Everything inside me had gone very, very cold. Apparently, in the state where I live, you can still sue someone for not marrying you, or in this case, for not marrying your cheating son. My first instinct was to call Ryan and scream. My second was to call my mom and cry. Instead, I grabbed my laptop. "Family law attorney breach of promise," I typed. That's how I found Caroline Price. Her office was in a downtown building with a lobby that smelled like lemon cleaner and tired ambition. She was in her 40s, sharp suit, hair pulled back, glasses she pushed up when she was thinking. I liked her immediately because she didn't look surprised when I told her why I was there, just annoyed on my behalf. She flipped through the lawsuit, lips tightening. "Well," she said finally, "they really went for it." "Can they do this?" I asked. "Like legally?" "They can file," she said. "That doesn't mean they can win." I slid my phone across the desk. I have evidence, screenshots, 6 months of texts between Ryan and his ex. Some of them are a lot. Caroline put on gloves, actual gloves, and handled my phone like it was a piece of evidence in a crime show. She scrolled in silence, eyes moving quickly. After a minute, she smiled. It wasn't a soft smile. It was predatory. "This," she said, "is going to be fun." "Fun," I repeated. "They're suing you for breach of promise, but their son breached first by cheating," she said. "Infidelity is a pretty strong defense. You didn't break the engagement without cause. You discovered an ongoing affair. You acted reasonably, and you documented everything." She gestured at the screen. "Judges love documentation." "So, what happens now?" "They filed in civil court," she said. "There'll be a hearing, possibly a trial if they're stubborn. I'll file a response, submit your evidence, and we'll also add a counterclaim for your legal fees. If we win, there's a good chance the judge orders them to pay." "Will I have to pay anything?" I heard my voice go small and hated it. "Not if things go as they should," she said. "They have no idea how badly they've overplayed their hand here. But I need you to be prepared for the next part." "What next part?" "The part where they don't just use the court system," she said. "People like this rarely keep it contained. They're going to come at you socially, through friends, family, anyone who will listen. I need you to document everything, every text, every call, every weird thing that shows up on your doorstep. Do not respond in anger. Forward it all to me." I thought about Thomas's face when he'd said compensation, like it was inevitable. "You really think they'll go that far?" She gave me a look that said she'd been doing this a long time. "I think they already have a strategy. You need to have one too." She filed our response the next day. The hearing was set for a month out. 30 days suddenly felt like a marathon I hadn't trained for. The smear campaign didn't start online. The Bennetts are too calculated for that. It started in phone calls and living rooms and group chats I wasn't in. I felt the shift before I heard the words. A coworker who used to invite me for happy hour stopped asking. A cousin of Ryan's who still followed me on social media liked fewer of my posts. Two mutual friends who'd promised to be there for me went quiet. Then one of those friends, Jenna, texted, "Hey, can we talk about what happened? I've been hearing some stuff and I just need to understand." I stared at the screen. My chest tightened. "Sure," I wrote. "What have you heard?" She took a minute. "Just that Ryan made a mistake, but you completely blindsided him. That you refused counseling, that you canceled the wedding 3 weeks out and left his parents with all the bills. That it was more of an emotional thing with his trainer and nothing actually happened physically. And you're blowing it up and trying to ruin him over a lapse in judgment." A lapse in judgment. The words sat there like acid. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I scrolled back in my email, picked 3 screenshots that were explicit enough to kill any emotional-only narrative, but not so explicit that I'd feel gross sending them. I forwarded them. "Here's what really happened," I wrote. Jenna read them. I watched the typing shine bubble appear, disappear, reappear. Then nothing. She never responded. One by one, the subtle social doors started to close. Not all of them. Some friends stayed neutral, some quietly furious on my behalf, but enough that I could feel the ground shifting under me. At family gatherings on my side, I could feel the tension humming between my parents' anger and their worry that I was being painted as the villain. My mom called me one evening, voice tight. "Thomas called today," she said. "Said we raised a daughter who quits when things get hard." I squeezed my eyes shut. "What did you say?" I asked him if hard included 6 months of his son sneaking around with an ex-girlfriend. She snapped. I told him if he ever spoke to me like that again, I'd hang up on him. And then I hung up on him. For the first time that day, I laughed. It came out raw, but it was something. "He's not going to stop," I said. "I don't care," she replied. "You did the right thing. I'm proud of you. Your father is proud of you. If anyone wants to believe their version, that's on them." I believed her, mostly. But belief doesn't stop your stomach from twisting when another mutual friend stops replying. The knock on my door one night came around 9. Soft. 2 quick taps, 1 longer. I checked the peephole and found Mark standing in the hallway, hands jammed in his pockets. I considered not opening the door at all. Then I thought about Caroline telling me to document everything. I opened it, but only halfway. "What do you want?" "We need to talk," he said. He looked tired, less polished than usual. "I don't think that's a good idea." "5 minutes, please." I left the chain on. "You can talk from there." He exhaled. "Look, what Ryan did was wrong. I'm not defending him. But this lawsuit, it's tearing my parents apart. They're stressed. He's a mess. This doesn't have to go this far." "They're the ones who filed," I said. "I didn't sue anyone." "They did it because they're desperate," he said. "They spent everything on this wedding. They took out loans. If you just agreed to pay back a portion of the expenses, they'd drop the suit." My skin went cold and hot at the same time. A portion. 40,000, he said, like he was telling me the time. Half of what they spent on the wedding itself, not including the emotional damages stuff. It's way less than what they're asking in court. You'd avoid a trial, legal fees, all of it. "You're asking me," I said slowly, "to pay your family $40,000 because your brother couldn't keep it in his pants." His jaw tightened. "You loved him. You were going to marry him. This doesn't have to be scorched earth." "I'm not the one who lit the match," I said. "They did that when they sued me instead of grounding their son in reality." "You don't know how a judge will rule," he said. "You think you do, but you don't. This could all blow up in your face." "I have 6 months of proof," I said. "If anyone's case is going to blow up, it's theirs." He stared at me for a long beat. I could see Thomas in his eyes then, the same calculation. "You're going to regret this," he said quietly. "Maybe," I replied, "but I'm definitely not going to regret not writing your dad a check." I shut the door. This time it felt final. The harassment didn't stop there. If anything, saying no made them double down. One morning I opened my door to find a plant on the doormat. Brown, shriveled, dead. A note was tucked into the dirt. "This is what you did to her future." My hand shook as I took a picture, then another with the date visible on my phone screen. I forwarded both to Caroline. Another time my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. "I miss your smile. Thursday can't come soon enough." For a second, my chest caved in. Then I realized it wasn't sent to me. It was a forwarded screenshot, one of the messages from Danny that I'd saved, now being sent back from an unknown number with a follow-up text. If you'd paid more attention, maybe he wouldn't have needed this. I took screenshots, blocked the number, sent it all to Caroline. Good, she wrote back. Keep everything. I thought we'd hit peak petty. Then HR called. Hi, Ava. Do you have a minute? My manager asked, voice carefully neutral. We need you to come down to human resources. My brain did a quick inventory. Reports completed? Yes. Email sent? Yes. Did I accidentally CC someone I shouldn't have? Probably, but that was normal. In the HR office, the director slid a printed document toward me. We received an anonymous complaint, she said, alleging misuse of company resources for personal matters, excessive time off related to your personal drama, and creating a hostile work environment by discussing your upcoming lawsuit. My ears rang. Anonymous. Yes, she said. We are obligated to investigate. This isn't an accusation of guilt, just a process. We'll need access to your work email and calendar, and we'll probably talk to some of your coworkers. This is ridiculous, I said. I don't even talk about my personal life at work unless someone asks if I'm okay. We understand this is stressful, she said, but we have to follow procedure. Stressful, that was one word for it. I walked back to my desk feeling exposed, like every set of eyes might know something I didn't. By the end of the week, everyone did know. Rumors move faster than email. HR cleared me after a few days. No misuse of anything. No pattern of inappropriate behavior. Just a lot of smoke someone had tried to pump under the door. Still, the damage was done. Now, when I walked into the break room, conversations paused, then started again, a little too bright, a little too late. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by papers. The lawsuit, Caroline's emails, my own notes. They weren't just trying to make me pay. They were trying to break me down so that paying would feel like relief. I opened a new document and started typing dates. The night I found the texts, the night the Bennetts came over, the day I was served, Jenna's screenshot, Mark at the door, the dead plant, the anonymous HR complaint. A timeline of war right there in black and white. When I finished, I emailed it to Caroline. She replied almost immediately. Perfect, she wrote. We're not just defending anymore, Ava. We're building our own case. When we get to court, we're not going to play defense alone. We're going to show the judge exactly how far they were willing to go to bully you into paying for his cheating. For the first time since opening that thick envelope, I didn't feel like prey. I felt like someone who was done running. The month leading up to the hearing felt like living inside a pressure cooker, quiet from the outside, hissing on the inside. Every day I woke up wondering what new tactic the Bennetts would use. Every night I went to sleep rehearsing answers to questions that only existed in my imagination. But Caroline kept me grounded, sharp, focused. We met twice a week in her office, a glass-walled space overlooking the city. She had a whiteboard where she'd written dates, arrows, keywords, timeline, infidelity, intentional harassment, documentation. She circled documentation every time we met. All judges are different, she said one afternoon, clicking her pen. Some value testimony. Some care more about precedent. But every judge values proof. Proof is quiet, neutral. It doesn't get emotional. It just sits there and wins. I nodded, though my stomach tightened every time she said the word judge. And, she continued, the Bennetts? They're emotional. They're reactive. They're reckless. Their side is going to walk in swinging. We are going to walk in calm. Calm, I said, half laughing. Right. She smiled. Don't worry, we'll practice. And we did, for hours. She sat across from me and played the judge. Ms. Mitchell, why did you call off the wedding? Ms. Mitchell, did you attempt reconciliation? Ms. Mitchell, did you consider the financial burden on Ryan's family? Ms. Mitchell, why didn't you address the infidelity sooner? She pushed me, rephrased, challenged, interrupted, tested. By the time we wrapped each session, I felt like I'd been wrung out and ironed flat. You're doing well, she said one day as she capped her pen. But remember, the most powerful thing you can be in that room is reasonable. Reasonable. It sounded simple. It wasn't. Because outside her office, nothing the Bennetts did was reasonable. The harassment tightens. The dead plant was only the beginning. The anonymous texts escalated. The HR complaint had shaken me more deeply than I wanted to admit. Then came the Instagram posts. Not from Ryan. Oh no, the Bennetts were too classy for that. But a cousin of his, someone who had always been warm to me, posted a photo carousel of a family dinner with a caption that read, Sometimes the people you love betray you when you need them most. Family forever. Linda Bennett commented with a heart emoji. I didn't need them to write my name to know who they meant. My mom called the moment she saw it. Don't you dare internalize that, she snapped before I could even say hello. And don't you respond. Silence, Ava. That's your weapon. She was right. Caroline said the same thing. So I stayed silent. And Ryan, not a word, not a text, not an email. He'd evaporated into some shame-filled void, leaving his parents to fight his battles like he was still 15. But silence does strange things to your mind. It makes you imagine they're planning the next strike. And they were. Work becomes a spotlight. Even though HR cleared me, the fallout lingered. Coworkers treated me gently, cautiously, like I was radioactive. People stopped inviting me to lunch. Conversations quieted when I walked into conference rooms. The office had become a quiet Greek chorus of "don't mention the lawsuit." My boss, Eric, pulled me aside one afternoon. Look, he said, leaning against my cubicle wall. I don't need the details, but whatever you're dealing with, handle it. Don't let it derail you. I nodded. I wasn't derailed, just tired. Very, very tired. All of it. Every small humiliation, every whispered judgment, went straight into the folder labeled Exhibits for Caroline. Possible harassment pattern. She read every page. Good, she said. Let them dig their own grave. We just have to keep collecting the shovels. The eve of the hearing. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the faint streetlight glow painting shadows across the room. My mind replayed everything. Ryan laughing in the kitchen while cooking pasta. The first time he said, I love you. The moment I saw the first message from Danny. Thomas's voice demanding compensation. Mark telling me I'd regret not paying $40,000. Linda clutching her handbag like I'd attacked her son instead of the other way around. People talk about heartbreak like it's one big shatter. But heartbreak is paper cuts, one after another. Invisible until you realize you're bleeding everywhere. At 3:27 a.m., I finally got up, made tea, and opened my laptop. I looked at the screenshots again, not because I needed to, but because it was a reminder. I wasn't the one who created this mess. I was the one cleaning it up. At 5:02 a.m., I showered, dressed, sat on the edge of the bed, and breathed. At 7:15 a.m., I met Caroline outside the courthouse. She looked crisp and unshaken, like someone who'd already won. You okay? She asked. I think so. You will be, she said, and if they behave the way I expect, the judge is going to take one look at this case and wonder why we're even here. She straightened my collar. It felt oddly maternal. Remember, she said, you're not here to fight. You're here to tell the truth. Inside the courtroom. Courtrooms always look bigger on television. In real life, they feel smaller, more suffocating. The fluorescent lights hummed. The wood paneling smelled like lemon oil. My heels clicked too loudly across the tile. Ryan's family was already there. Thomas in a charcoal suit, Linda in a pale blue blazer, face pinched and exhausted. Mark standing rigid behind them. And Ryan, my ex-fiancé, looked like a ghost wearing a borrowed suit, pale, unshaven, eyes red, unfocused. He didn't look at me, not once. Their lawyer, a man who clearly charged by the eyebrow raise, stood beside them with a stack of papers and the smug aura of someone who thought money could bend reality. Caroline and I sat at the defendant's table. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might echo off the walls. The bailiff called the room to order. Everyone stood. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair pulled into a low bun, took her seat. Be seated, she said. We sat, and the hearing began. Their lawyer goes first. He strode forward with the confidence of a man who'd practiced his speech in the mirror. Your Honor, he began, we are here today because my client's son, Ryan Bennett, was abandoned without cause 3 weeks before his wedding. Significant financial investments were made in good faith, including non-refundable deposits totaling $85,000. Due to the defendant's abrupt and unjustified termination of the engagement, my client suffered severe financial and emotional damages. He paced, gestured, paused dramatically. He painted Ryan as a devoted young man, painted me as cold, impulsive, vindictive. Ryan stared at the table the whole time. I watched the judge. She did not appear impressed. Caroline stands. Your Honor, she said, voice steady as stone, the plaintiff's story omits the central fact of this case. Their son, Ryan Bennett, was engaged in a sexual relationship with his ex-girlfriend for 6 months prior to the engagement being terminated. We have extensive evidence to demonstrate this. The judge's eyebrows lifted just slightly. Caroline tapped her laptop. A monitor lit up on the judge's bench. Your Honor, she continued, we have authenticated text messages, timestamps, and metadata proving an ongoing affair. The defendant discovered this evidence and reasonably chose not to proceed with the marriage. The judge scrolled. Her eyebrows lifted higher. She looked at Ryan. Mr. Bennett, she said, voice sharp, were these messages sent by you? Ryan swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. And during your engagement to Ms. Mitchell, were you having a physical relationship with another woman? Yes, Your Honor, he whispered. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Caroline wasn't finished. She presented the timeline, the screenshots, the HR complaint, the dead plant, the burner texts. She did it clinically, calmly, without malice. Each piece of evidence landed like a stone. And suddenly, the Bennetts didn't look polished anymore. They looked exposed, frantic, small. And just as the tension in the room reached its highest point, the judge leaned back in her chair, folded her hands, and prepared to rule. The courtroom felt suspended, like the air itself was holding its breath. The judge's silence wasn't empty. It was evaluative, heavy, decisive. I could feel Caroline beside me, calm and perfectly still, like she'd been waiting for this moment since the first day I stepped into her office with shaking hands. Finally, the judge spoke. Let me be clear, she said, her voice firm enough to ripple through the room. This is not a complicated case. Thomas shifted sharply in his seat. Linda gripped her handbag. Mark stared straight ahead. Ryan didn't move at all. The judge continued. The plaintiff's son engaged in an extended pattern of infidelity during his engagement. This directly constitutes cause to terminate a promise to marry. The defendant's actions were reasonable. The lawsuit has no legal merit. Thomas opened his mouth. The judge raised a hand. No, sit down. He did. In that moment, I realized the Bennetts had never been told no in a room they couldn't buy. The judge turned to Caroline. The defense is granted. The case is dismissed with prejudice. Caroline nodded once, calm as ever. Thank you, Your Honor. The judge wasn't done. Furthermore, she said, leaning forward, it is clear to this court that the plaintiffs filed this suit as retaliation for embarrassment caused by Mr. Bennett's infidelity. You attempted to weaponize the legal system for personal vengeance. Linda gasped, a tiny breathy sound. Therefore, the judge continued, I am ordering the plaintiffs to pay the defendant's legal fees. Caroline stood. We estimate those fees at $8,500, Your Honor. Approved, the judge said. Full payment to be completed within 30 days. The judge looked directly at the Bennetts now, not at their lawyer, not at the table, but at them. If there is any further harassment of Ms. Mitchell, she warned, including but not limited to texts, calls, workplace interference, or contact through third parties, the court will consider a restraining order. Am I understood? Thomas's face flushed a deep, furious red. Linda looked like she might faint. Ryan whispered, barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. The judge nodded once. This hearing is concluded. The gavel hit wood. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like an hour. The fallout inside the courtroom. Caroline began packing her laptop and folders, efficient and unbothered. Well, she said lightly, that went even better than expected. I let out a breathless laugh. Is that normal? Judges don't like being lied to, she said, or manipulated, and they definitely don't like people wasting the court's time. We stood. My legs felt strange. Too light, like the floor was suddenly farther away than it should be. I glanced over at the Bennetts. Thomas was talking aggressively to their lawyer, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Linda dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Mark stared at the table, jaw clenched so tight it could have cracked. Ryan sat hunched, shoulders caved inward, face buried in his hands. A tiny part of me, deep buried human, felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered the dead plant, the burner texts, the HR complaint, the lawsuit. The sympathy went out like a candle. Outside the courthouse, the sun hit me like a shock. Bright, warm, almost disorienting after the cold intensity of the courtroom. Caroline stepped beside me. Congratulations, Ava. You're officially free. Free, I repeated, tasting the word. It felt right. Clean. She smirked. And paid, or about to be. I laughed, real and unexpected. It startled a flock of pigeons. Caroline shook my hand. If they contact you again for anything, call me. We'll handle it. I will, I promised. She walked away, heels clicking confidently across the pavement. I watched her go with a gratitude that felt bone deep. I didn't rush home. I bought myself a coffee. I sat on a park bench. I breathed. For the first time in months, my lungs didn't feel constricted. It was over. Really over. 1 week later, my phone rang while I was folding laundry. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut told me who it was. I answered cautiously. Hello? Ava, Mark's voice, smaller than usual. I know you probably don't want to talk to me. You're right. He exhaled shakily. I wanted to apologize for everything. I stayed silent. My parents, they shouldn't have done that. I told them it was insane, but they wouldn't listen. They're paying the fees. It's going to hurt for a while. Not my problem, I said. Yeah, he said quietly. I know. He hesitated. Ryan, he's not doing well. I closed my eyes. Mark, I'm not asking you to feel bad, he said quickly. He lost his job. Danny dumped him the second all of this got public. He's back living with our parents. It's bad. Something in me shifted. Not empathy, but maybe closure. Okay, I said. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry, he repeated and hung up. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel bad. I just felt done. The email. 2 days later, Ryan emailed me. A long message. Apologies. Explanations. Therapy. Childhood wounds. Self-sabotage. Regret. A claim that he never meant to hurt me, even though intent stops mattering the second someone lies for 6 months straight. I hovered over reply for a moment, then deleted the email, emptied my trash folder, blocked the address. Done. Family and friends. Some people drifted away permanently. Others returned quietly with, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. Some relationships endured, some didn't. Clarity has a way of rearranging your life without asking permission. My parents were anchors through all of it. My mom left Tupperware full of food on my porch with notes like, proud of you, eat something. My dad took me to a small bar the night I told him it was officially over. He didn't lecture or pry. He just raised his glass and said, to better things. Work. Surprisingly, work got better. HR closed my file. People moved on. Office gossip cycles quickly. My boss later gave me a raise at my annual review. I'm impressed, he said, with how professionally you handled a difficult situation. I nearly cried in his office. Moving forward. 2 months after the hearing, I started dating again. Slowly, cautiously. I met Ethan on a friend's group outing. Kind eyes, warm voice, zero ego. The opposite of everything that had gone wrong. On our third date, I told him the whole story. All of it. He listened. Really listened. When I finished, he nodded and said, You're single because you refused to marry someone who cheated on you and his family sued you for it? Honestly, Ava, that's the most grounded thing I've ever heard. We've been seeing each other for a month now. No pressure, no rush, just peace. Something I hadn't realized I'd forgotten how to feel. Final reflection. Sometimes I think about Ryan. Not often. Not fondly. Mostly in a detached way, like remembering a house I once lived in that later burned down. I walk past the ashes but don't stop. Do I think he ever loved me? Maybe. But love without honesty is a performance. Love without respect is a costume. Love without loyalty is nothing. His family loved their money more than accountability. That tells me everything I need to know. And me? I'm good, really good. I have a home I reclaimed piece by piece. A job that respects me. A new relationship that feels like sunlight instead of smoke. A version of myself I trust more than ever. If anyone reading this is facing something similar, walk away. Don't bargain with betrayal. Don't let people bully you into paying for their mistakes. Document everything. Get a good lawyer. And remember, deposits can be refunded or written off. Self-respect cannot. When someone shows you who they are, believe it. And when life gives you an exit door, walk through it.